All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in to yet another amazing episode of Tales from the Pantheon. This is your first time here. Essentially, this podcast is really to, create a no BS environment and talk about a lot of the amazing things and stories and lessons from some really great industry leaders. Today we have Arturo Piña today, and he's going to be helping us out with just discussing his journey, what he's looking for in investments, and a lot of other aspects that he's kind of learned throughout his career, both as an operator and as an investor as well. And so, to continue on with everything else, who are we basically? So, I am the CEO of Titan AI. I am also managing director for Founder Institute in Austin. That is a new title. I used to be associate director. That is a recent change that I guess now I'm officially allowed to talk about and address with the public. But from there, basically, Titan AI is a platform that helps with finding the right, people, communities, and opportunities throughout your professional networking journey. So being able to have community management, being able to manage your own professional network, not just the who and the what, but also really the how and the why. We also made our V2 live very recently, so towards mid-December, and we've been taking a lot of feedback from our users, the community, and just a lot of different super connectors to try to make sure that our process is streamlined and that the site is really functioning the best way possible. So if you're really interested in not only growing your network but also maintaining it, or managing, your communities, professional organizations, definitely jump onto the platform. We'd love to have you guys there. And if you guys have any questions, issues, whatever it is, we respond extremely fast to all those things. We typically push updates, usually within 24 hours. So happy to, streamline and ask or answer any questions there. But now I would like to jump into the fun part of all of this. So being able to introduce my really good friend Arturo. I actually met him, was going through the Founder Institute itself in 2023. He's one of our amazing mentors, and we just became great friends from there. He has been on multiple other panels with me, both as a moderator and other capacities, and so I'm really excited to dive a little bit deeper and learn a little bit more about him and really what he's looking for with the new fund that he's creating and a lot of other aspects. So let's go ahead and bring on Arturo.
Hey, Gabe, thanks for having me.
Hey, man, thanks for jumping on. I really appreciate it, man. So let's go ahead and just jump right into everything. So let's hear a little bit more about you, your background, and then we can just go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll keep it pretty brief, but been in Austin for about 11 years now, so over a decade. I moved down here, to be honest, without a massive plan. Really was just going one day at a time. Out of necessity, Googled how to start a business, and the rest is sort of history. It kind of went off from there, right? So really got into entrepreneurship in my early 20s by starting just a small local service-based business. Naturally, I'm always like solving problems in my head. I started building some technology for it just to make it more streamlined, more profitable. That got me to thinking about tech, which led into joining some early stage ventures here in town. And really, it's been a decade of going from 0 to 1, literally building companies as a founder or very early employee from what are we doing today? We have no idea what the product is, what the problem is, what the solution is, all the way through Series C. So hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, capital raise, 2 exits, and just about every role, title, vertical that you could probably think of. So very much an entrepreneur or startup, guy at heart, and I just love to solve problems. And that got me into kind of angel investing to understand the other side of the equation, right? So starting as a founder entrepreneur, I've been in venture capital involved, to some capacity, always seeing money coming in, but it was still very much like a closed door black box. I had no idea what happened on the other side or in those rooms in venture capital, right? So decided to really start angel investing as a more educational process, right? It's like, okay, so I've been a founder, I've seen some cool things, I've been successful. Let's start writing some checks and like see what that's all about, right? And really, after about 2 years of doing that, I just really found myself, number one, enjoying the process of chatting with a lot of early stage founders, companies, understanding, like what would I do, right? As a founder myself, I'm an operator, founder first, investor sort of second. So it was really cool to just take the time to kind of like take a step back, put myself in their shoes, and think of their companies, through their eyes and their problems, et cetera, and then say, can I invest in this and realistically try to make a solid return? And the more I did that, the more it honestly just made sense. Like, hey, this is the natural evolution, right? This is a way for me to now do what I do best, but also do it at a larger capacity and just have a lot more impact on the world around me. So now I'm here to invest in a lot of early stage companies in the pre-seed stage. And hopefully have that outsized impact instead of just a one-to-one relationship with a company that I might start. Hopefully now it's a one-to-many relationship with amazing founders here in Austin and across the nation.
No, that's amazing. And I know like you've been very pivotal in the shaping of, this latest venture that we've been doing. I know you were probably one of the most inspiring and loudest in the best way voices for, how to actually, set up what we were doing, how to really get some of that customer discovery done, how to really think about the perspectives, not only as, a founder looking into their business, but also like how our users or how the people that we work with, our partners and collaborators really view things. And not even just that, but you're one of the few people that got me to actually put my investor hat on, and also get me a little bit more involved with the Founder Institute and everything else, because you are also an entrepreneur in residence for us as well. And so it's been really interesting to see that process as well. Um, and also, if anybody's experienced any lag, I'm sorry about that. It may be coming from my end, honestly. I am on location right now, as you see, without my podcast mic. So hopefully the stream comes out well for all of you guys. But um, yeah, definitely dive more into what initially drove you, with those earlier businesses that you created, and like how that actually came to be, what those companies were, and how you ended up getting to those exits as well.
Yeah, yeah. So it's taken a couple of different paths. As I kind of briefly alluded to at the beginning, it was out of necessity. So the first time ever, right? So like actually diving into entrepreneurship. I was it was in my early 20s. I had just moved to Austin. I had a job from big corporate America, or I had an offer from big corporate America. The starting date was being locked in. Everything was almost ready to rock and roll. And all of a sudden, they just pressed pause on all hiring for that organization. I'm not going to say any names on a recorded call, but long story short, that job never started, even after signing the offer and I was ready to go, right? Full transparency, I was fairly young. I probably had $300 left to my name at the time and didn't know what else to do. I had bought my first suit at that time too, because I needed to dress up for the interviews. And I just remember thinking, like, I do not want to wear this suit every single day. So, like, literally, I just Googled how to start a business. Realized that legally it's a pretty straightforward process, at least in the state of Texas, in a non-venture backed sort of capacity, just by forming an LLC for $300 by going downtown. I had the paperwork that said I was a legit business. And literally that was the first thing I did. Then I just started making a bunch of phone calls. I put up a website. This was a service-based business that's actually still operating to this day, 10 years later, in the construction space. But without boring you guys to death or kind of going into all the details, it was like literally just like I need to do something because I got bills coming up. So let's just figure out the answers. Let's just get on the false. Like, what are things that I can control today that I have the time, obviously, and then just figure out the rest later. So like literally a couple weeks worth of phone calls. Got somebody that took the bait. They said, sure, let's give you a shot. I had to figure out what that meant in 24 hours before I showed up to our first contract. And like I said, that business has been around for over a decade now, and does fairly well, and operates all throughout the state of Texas. So I think that kind of gave me the confidence that if you kind of decide you want to do something, you can do it. Whether that's being naive, overconfident, whatever the case might be. Like, that just got that sense in my head that, if you want to go do something, just go do it. Shortly after that, um, I was introduced to some guys in the prop tech space. Great, great, great folks. I really respect those guys. They were early DoorDash employees that moved to Austin and started a company in the prop tech space. We connected, and basically we just, I think I applied for like a product operations role. And when I think of that, it was more like product period operations. It was like literally day one, day zero type building. Every day was completely different, right? Like some days I was a product manager, some days I was like a maintenance manager managing, vendors all throughout the United States because that's what we had to do, right? Other times I would just get in my car and go check on some of the properties that we had acquired in the prop tech space. But that was just an awesome experience, to figure out every single day. We're coming in, we have no idea what tomorrow looks like. We just need to figure this out and grow, right? Let's validate that this business is it's viable and scalable. So it's actually one of the companies that ended up exiting some years later. Um, and there was a few stings here and there after that. So without, like, again, boring you guys to death, it was really more about finding companies that I thought had, massive potential, um, with a lot of sort of uncertainty around product and operations, which is what I love to do. That's what I realized I'm good at, right? And going in there and just putting almost like, oh, it's my founder hat on, right? It's like, this is my company essentially. No matter what I do, I kind of go in as an owner, figure out the best way to make some massive impact, and take it from there. So then, the last role I actually had that ended up being more product focused role, with the largest exit. And that was in a big e-commerce play. We ended up getting acquired by a conglomerate out of Europe called Sage, in the accounting space, believe it or not. During that sting, I ended up building accounting products and all these things that I probably shouldn't be doing. But at the end of the day, it made sense just to dive in. Like you and I talked about, Gabe, when we first met, right? It's like, what problem are you solving, right? It's like, what do we need to do to like understand our customers better, and build the solutions that they're like happy to pay for and happy to pay for a long time. So that really just ended up being sort of that recurring theme in all these roles and all these companies that I've started. Most of them have been very unsexy, like very old school, sort of boring industries, which naturally kind of became part of my investment thesis. Which is, what are things that are like problems that are just fact, right? These aren't pain points that like some people feel and some don't. Like in big organizations, there's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of impact. But anyways, I feel like now I'm just rambling, right? But that's kind of what led into finding these opportunities, riding the wave, getting punched every single day on problems and finding solutions, and just making sure that those continue to grow, into some opportunity for exits or acquisitions, or profitability, which is also a beautiful thing.
No, I mean, that's some amazing perspective on everything. I mean, being able to also transition from a founder into an actual investor. I've talked with a couple of different individuals throughout my network over the years, and it's not an easy process, right? There's still a lot of preconceived notions I think that founders have when it comes to even the fundraising process that you guys have to go through, because it is a completely different process, right? Raising from LPs, versus raising from angels or any other venture capital firms or whatever it is. It's a completely different ball game, and it's also a lot more difficult to even source and operate within some of those categories. And then you're also not only thinking about, as you're reviewing some of this deal flow, who am I really talking to? Do I think this person's going to win kind of scenario? But it's also like, how do I coach this individual to get to, some of those higher levels, and then using some of the prior experience that you've had to be able to also, remove some of those, pitfalls, or be able to provide that mentorship and advice that I think is really critical, especially in those early stage moments where, even if you have a track record, every new business is a different, setup or ball game. So like, it's really good that you are able to kind of have those, I guess, previous scenarios to really fall back on and draw back on to then provide some really tangible and useful information for not only founders but also other investors that you run across as well. Because I've seen you also engage with and kind of mentor and assist with both sides of that. So I really want to dive deeper into your investment philosophy a little bit more as well. So you mentioned a little bit, but we've spoken about this multiple times, founder conviction, right? What does that actually look like in practice, and what do you look like, and what do you look for, or what should other investors really look for when they're evaluating that conviction in terms of, is this a viable company that I want to back or not?
Yeah. I'll put my personal lens on it, right? This is the way that I approach things. Sometimes I believe that I'm slightly different, especially coming from the founder to investor, the transition there. But also naturally just being obsessed with the earliest of stages, right? With the pre-seed, which I fundamentally believe we lack pre-seed funding in our ecosystem. And outside of the few major hubs in the United States, maybe some other parts of the world too, right? But I do like thoroughly believe that we can do more and we can do better at the earliest of stages. And there's a bunch of opinions there, but getting into the question specifically, what I look for in the way that I think of it is I look for builders, especially in today's market, right? This has been the case since day one. I look for people that essentially don't take no for an answer or don't know how to slow down, and can just find solutions in any way possible. So if we get a little bit more specific to that, um, especially now with all the AI tools that we have with vibe coding and whatnot, the people that are still out here looking for money and capital to validate an idea, like to me, that's just going to be a hard no at this time, right? If I myself can just pull out some vibe coding, spend a couple of tens of dollars, right, 50, $100, a couple $100 on tokens and have a working product, I know that's not the real business, right? That's not how you create this massive, valuable startup. But the barrier of entry is, to me, now non-existent, right? So number one, builders that find a way to create and build the solutions that they're after, right? That they're trying to create. So really adding on top of that is people that know their space intimately well. So what is the reason for you solving this problem, right? Is it something that you've dealt with as part of your previous job, or is this something that you studied, or is it, like, why are you out here solving this problem? Like, do you know this problem intimately well, better than most other folks around? Um, and the reason I look for that is so that that gives me the confidence that you, as a founder, as an individual, every time you're making decisions, even though you might be lacking a lot of information or data, especially in the earliest of stages, your intuition and your knowledge, right? Like what's inside of you is what's going to dictate a lot of what you do and build and say. So having that sort of intimate experience, intimate knowledge in your problem space, I think will make for a better founder. All of this is very simple, by the way, right? Like,
Yeah.
some of you might be listening in the future and thinking like, well, this is like, elementary, this is 101. But the reality of it is that it's not always applied, right? Or it's not commonly something that comes across my desk. So I do feel the need to say it.
See, the thing is, even with that, common sense isn't so common. And even I've seen experienced founders, like, it's very easy to fall back into what is not expected, right? Or what you shouldn't be doing, right? Like, even myself, right? I'm on company number 3. I've worked with dozens of startups, but sometimes it's difficult. And when you're kind of in the zone, or you kind of get tunnel vision in certain areas, you can definitely just fall into those habits of not really knowing where to go next, or kind of running around in circles a little bit, which is also why I think it's pivotal for what you've been saying about an investor not just really being a check, right? Being able to use that investor as a resource in those specific categories that they're really operating in. Because if they don't have the industry expertise, the network, the knowledge, whatever it is, then it doesn't matter. And you touched on a really good point in regard to moat, right? Like, anybody could just go in and really create any application now. And so it's like, okay, it's not just the product anymore. It's also like, okay, how do you have the ability to market this? Do you have the ability to get users? Is there any differentiation that might necessarily hone in or improved upon from your experience that you've had over your career, right? Because if somebody that's been a data scientist for 30 years that person I might look at a little bit more than the guy that just picked up, vibe coding right now and is, coding some stuff right out of college, just simply because, that data scientist is going to know a lot more about, big data and being able to, apply some of those moats a little bit better than somebody that's fresh out the gate. And that doesn't mean that, the next Zuckerberg isn't out there that's just doing this right out of school, but the experience and really just the knowledge around those aspects and how to build a moat, I think, is kind of the biggest thing that I took away from what you kind of just said with all of that.
Yeah, and I do want to add, sorry for interrupting, but it's not just time, right? It's not just like the 30 years of experience, but like I'll give a great example. There's a founder that I recently met, and he's a kid at the end of the day, right? Like he's a very young guy. He's brilliant. Every conversation I have with him, I leave smarter than when I enter the room, and that's part of the equation too. But the problem that he's solving is very, very specific in the supply chain industry, right? Or in that vertical. And he's worked in some of these like factories and like all these things that, even though for a short amount of time, but to this day, I haven't met anybody that knows that problem better than he does, right? Even though he's the kid at the end of the day, or a young adult. I don't mean that negatively. He's in, as far as I know, the most qualified person to build this tech solution for that specific problem space. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that it's not just 30 years of experience, right? But
Exactly.
like intimately, like hands-on experience in whatever your problem space is. And then with the angle of, okay, how do we now apply technology, whatever technology stack that might be, but how do we now apply technology to this problem? And that can come from a lot of different places.
No, 100%. I've actually seen exactly what you're talking about there. I mean, even with my first business, man, I started that when I was 18. I saw a need in the market. We got to, 100K ARR in a couple months, right? Like, it's just being able to also see those opportunities and kind of see things from like that macro and micro point of view. I think that's a really important aspect for founders as well, especially when we're evaluating really any type of deal flow, not even just from the investment perspective, but even when you're looking to and speaking with customers as well on the product side, right? Like being able to um, pinpoint and grain of salt everything as well as they're hearing it and figuring out, okay, maybe we prioritize this feature over this feature, or maybe, okay, this is just a you thing, but maybe this is okay, every single person, we're hearing the same trend over and over again. Now how do we apply this and actually make it viable in the business and not spend years developing this small minute aspect that people may not even use or use the same way that we were anticipating. So 100% agree with everything you said there.
Yeah. And if we bring it back to, the two sort of main buckets that I talked about, right? It's builders and intimately knowing your problem space. So we don't spend years and a bunch of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars building solutions that don't go anywhere. The builders, I'm looking for somebody that's just going to get that done. Like I'm talking hours or days, especially in today's world. Let's get something out there. Let's ship. Let's validate, right? And the experience gives you the confidence to make those quick decisions. Look, we might be wrong at the end of the day. That's part of this beautiful journey in entrepreneurship and being an early stage founder and investor. But having the confidence to just go execute, validate, test, and experiment, I think is the key to any successful story, right? Is you just have to get out there, ship, solve problems. We might break some things, and that's okay as long as we learn, we adapt, and then we continue doing whatever it takes to grow, right, and make real companies at the end of the day.
1000%. And how do you balance the belief in a founder's, I would say, vision with the data and metrics that you kind of need to make an informed investment decision?
Yeah. So and Gabe, I think you and I have talked about this a million times, right? But I'm a realist and I'm a founder. So like I understand that we need this sort of magical vision and dream, of billions and billions of dollars. Um, but through some manner, right? Conversation, slides, data, something has to show me some path towards that valuation, right? Let's call it unicorn, decacorn, whatever this massive goal will be in changing the world. Um, and that path needs to be tangible, right? Like needs to be logical. So even internally, I'll ask myself a very like real question, right? It's okay, given the stuff that I know today, given the facts, whether that's average, customer value, like whether you're, subscription based, this and that, usage based. If you're telling me you're going to be the next billion-dollar company, $10 billion company, the data of valuations and how we come up with these numbers is all out there. Like I'm not making anything up. So realistically, I just asked myself, cool, well, how many customers will it be for any company, whoever I'm talking to have 100 million ARR, right? Or 500 million ARR? How does that look like compared to their TAM, SAM, SOM, right? Because sometimes these numbers to me are still sort of too big, and like that's great. We know the market is big enough, but again, how do you tangibly walk down that path to like acquire X many like I just need to get a little bit closer into theoretical numbers, because at the end of the day, nothing is really factual at the pre-seed stages, right? But I just have to have that confidence that yeah, there's a path that we can go, as I just mentioned, execute on, right? And validate and test and experiment. Um, but if that's not even there, then I can't gain the confidence, right, of this massive vision that we need. But I need to know that you've thought about a logical way to get there. You know what I mean? Like, does that kind of make sense? Like how to make it tangible, and kind of what I look for that, that investment criteria.
No, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I think there's, especially for early stage founders, and even I've seen this with founders that have actually raised before and had exits. And it's funny when you talk about like the TAM SAM SOM aspect, right? Like I was just on a call actually last week with a founder that said they've got a $2 trillion TAM, right? And I'm like, okay, but what is the actual number there? I'm like, that's if you sold to every single person in the market and like you charged the same amount as all of your competitors combined or whatever it is, right? And so the fact that I was saying one thing on that investment call and he was saying something completely different and stood alongside it, right? Like when somebody asks you what your market is, like, okay, how are you going to acquire that market as well? Can you actually address that in a way that doesn't sound like bullshit? And like, is this actually feasible? And I think there are a
100%.
lot of founders, especially early stage, that they think that investors are asking one thing and really they're asking another. And then a lot of people always fall back to the, oh, well, I might not even be looking for investment right now. I could just bootstrap this whole thing. I'm like, okay, but you still have to figure out how to acquire a customer. You still have to have, at the end of the day, a good product, but it's okay for things to be broken. Even then, because I even told him, I was like, yeah, put something out, right? It can be broken. It can be not so perfect because the early adopters won't care as much because they'll work with it because the problem is just that big for them that they will deal with those bugs. They will identify them for you and they will even help you with trying to fix them. And that's what we're dealing with now. And they're like, no, it has to be perfect. We can't put out a flawed product. I'm like, then you're just never going to come out. Like, hell, I've been dealing with some of the vibe coding applications with even like Cursor and Lovable and some of these other things. Like Cursor's putting out a new update every day. Literally, like there's stuff that's broken. I just got an email from one of the other projects that I have with like domain issues. And like Lovable's like, hey man, we're working on it. That's all
Yeah.
we got. Right. Like, and these are, Lovable is one of the fastest growing I think this is not the fastest growing company that's ever come out. With like they
Mhm.
reached, I think it was $100 million or something in like 8 months.
Yeah.
Like, like never seen before level of growth. Still have things that are broken and they're fixing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like that's where we learn the most, right? Like through shipping and like getting that real world feedback. And like
Yeah.
unless you have literally 10 customers as your customer pool to gain your entire market, where if you burn one of them, 1/10 of your TAM or whatever is now gone, right? Which is impossible. That doesn't exist. But my point there is, and just piggybacking or really double clicking on what you said is, sure, you might lose some customers, like, but you're also going to gain some very loyal ones that are invested in seeing your product improve, and they need this, right? So I think that's one of the things that like we'll all struggle with as a founder, right? Is like, well, it's not ready, and like, what if I lose 100 customers? look, if you have a million customers out there and like the first 100 hate it because you wasn't quite ready, it's a learning opportunity. Like get it out there. I don't think in 99.9% of cases that's gonna hurt you so much down the line that like you'll be done and out of business, right? So like just get out of your head, get out there, go ship. I wanted to add like a very tangible example too on like the TAM sum and I always see on slide decks is if we just gain 1% of the market, then we'll be a multi-billion-dollar company doing all this revenue. And I'm like, cool, easy math. But again, how will you get the 1%, right? Like, where do your customers live? Like, what is your approach? And I'm not saying again that I need 6 months of data and your CAC and your lifetime value and all this like details that we'll probably get down the line, but we should have a plan. We should have the confidence. At the end of the day, that's what capital is for, right? Is to go execute. Maybe this is like a good sort of recap on this entire conversation. Capital should be, it's a tool. Capital is a tool for us to grow our businesses. If you are raising capital to then think through some of these solutions or think through some of the plan, then I think you're approaching it wrong, right? Like come to the table, in my opinion, and this is what I do with my founders too, right? Whether I invest or don't invest, I usually try to help founders through this process. Is let's think about the problem, let's have confidence in some approach, and then let's go execute. And now, if you need money to go execute, be ready to rock and roll when you do go into that fundraising or you start asking for money to get things up and running.
Exactly. Yeah. That I think I want to jump back onto that 1% piece because I know we both hear it a lot, like way more often than we probably should. And just to all the founders out there, most, if not any investors want to hear like, oh yeah, I'm like, if we just capture 1% of the market, like, yeah, there's like thinking through every single one of your competitors because even with, and I've seen enough deals now to where you start seeing repeats, right? Like no idea is necessarily unique. Some of the approaches might be unique. The team could be unique and certain aspects might be unique, but I've heard at least 150 pitches last year alone on event applications or on different like little things there, right? So it's like that execution piece is I think what a lot of people are missing when we're talking about market size, right? Like we don't want to know, oh, the market, we just want to know, okay, the market is big enough to where yes, if you execute correctly, this could be like $1 billion+ valuation. So you can actually get a return on your investment, right? That's all everybody cares about after that. Then it's okay, what's the actual strategy to get there? And also those strategies might change, pivots happen and everything else, but it's a huge component that I think I hear even from a lot of later stage people, because also as soon as you get to, series A or whatever it is, like your growth and your scale stages are completely different in how you approach the market and how you adapt. And if you don't even factor in some of that stuff into your 3 to 5 year plan, like I know some really great founders that they lost some great opportunities for getting an investor in just because they didn't think about that, or they think that the same strategy that got them from 100 to 100,000 users is the same strategy that's going to get them from 100,000 to 1 million. And it's a completely different ballgame at every single step of the way. And people want to know you can adapt. That's kind of what I'm hearing from all the information you're saying too, and resonating is like, do you have the grit, perseverance, and if these obstacles do come, you have the capability to make those changes when necessary to make sure the business is still viable.
100%. And it's not if, but when, right?
Exactly.
So yeah. when the going gets rough,
because it will happen 100% every single time.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. I have all the respect for all the founders, all the creatives out there trying to create new things from nothing, right? That's a massive, massive challenge. And it's as hard as can be. So it's something we're all going to face. And we need to be resilient, like you said. Well said.
Yeah. So, even talking a little bit more about the early stage side and early stage signals, like when you're evaluating some of these pre-seed and seed founders, what is signals and traits really matter the most to you? And what are some of the approaches that you have really liked in the past to some of these obstacles?
Um, I mean, I don't want to like sound like a broken record or like oversimplify, but it is just speed and execution, right? So,
Mhm.
especially last year, I did a lot of what I call due diligence, but do spelled like DO, right? Like
Yeah.
doing diligence. And it was meant to be a 30-day exercise between me and founders that I was interested in investing in, and just working on something together. So, really, my offer to them was, what are your biggest problems right now, right? Like, what are your biggest pain points? I will support you in whatever way I can, literally, whether that's like just strategy sessions where we just hang out for an hour and talk about it, to creating designs, to getting on the phone and talking to my network and strategic partners, pilots, literally didn't matter. If I could do it, I would do it. And what I was looking for there is number one, just like how do they adapt, to curveballs, to when things don't go according to plan. So like we would set out to do this 30-day sort of trial, right? To like go execute on something and have something tangible at the end of it. And obviously nothing was ever perfect. Nothing ever really lasted 30 days. Sometimes it was a lot longer. Sometimes we were just completely off mark. But that gave me that visibility and like my experience working with the founder to understand, okay, how do they go execute? How do they adapt, like you mentioned, right? Like we had assumptions, those were wrong. Do we put egos aside and sort of learn, what went wrong, what we did right? How do we adapt to it? If we were just completely off, like, that was a waste of 2 weeks because we're not getting the engagement we need or the traction that we need or the final tech product that we need. How do we, pivot from that? So again, to me, it really just comes down to like that adaptability, that speed of execution, um, and the folks that just don't take no for an answer, right? Because that could be, look, maybe it was an engineer that is, more introverted, brilliant, and they don't have the money to go hire a bunch of salespeople. Part of that process might have been cool. Maybe I help you come up with your script and like your story and like how to position the thing, but I'm not going to make the calls for you and do the work for you. I help you do the work. So it's like, can somebody adapt even their personality, their skill sets to go do what's needed to get to that next milestone or that next step in a company building, right? So, yeah, it's adaptability, just like not taking no for an answer, getting out of the comfort zone. You just got to build, you got to execute, you got to be fast, make decisions, um, and take it as it goes. Like it's all about execution, right?
100%. And, talking in terms of the operational side or just some operational advice that you could, potentially provide in these aspects, just from your experience, what operational discipline really matters, especially within that first 12 to 18 months? Like, how can people even perfect some of that stuff if they might be lagging on it so that they can meet those milestones and not only for the year, but really, during that, usual amount of runway that we see, especially when companies kind of close those pre-seed or seed rounds where they really have to get things done within the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like this is not changing drastically every single day, but I think my answer a year ago might have been different than it is now. And it kind of expands some of the things I mentioned earlier, right? Which is now it's very easy to create products, right? To write code. Um, I think the real magic is now coming down to distribution channels. Um, so I think one of like the biggest advices that I can sort of give to anybody and even to myself is just to make sure that your focus is super narrow when you're starting out, right? Like whenever you have your product, whenever you're advertising it, whenever you're getting distribution out to the world, to find customers, get customers, and keep customers as part of this validation, right? That you're trying to validate that your business is viable and people will pay you money for whatever solution, is to stay focused and to keep that focus narrow. I think a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, as a founder, as a builder. Sometimes I think of the next feature, the next idea. It's what I need to be able to attract more people, and that might be the case. But I also feel like a lot of times, if we're not getting the traction that we need, or the eyes, or the feedback that we need, um, it's likely just that the product itself is not in a good place, right? Or the positioning and your messaging is not in a good space, or your pricing is not in a good place. just because you have more features doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that you're just going to like, find product market fit. And then I can get into like what happens downstream, right? Like a larger code base, more maintenance, you can have more things to support. If your, personas and your customers are kind of like split between different parts of your software, whatever you're selling, then, who do you fire? Who do you keep? So to keep it short, to kind of wrap it up there, I think is staying super focused on your value prop. Is it valuable enough? Is your pain point valuable enough to where people are giving you money? Um, and if you think it, if that isn't working, and you think you need, more and more features, then I don't know. I just feel like that's the more fundamental problem that needs to be solved versus just, oh, I need to do feature A, feature B, feature C. I need to do more. I think you just need to focus, narrow focus with better quality.
100%. And I think let's switch modes into kind of the ecosystem and community aspects of what you do, especially the Austin community, and investing and everything else, right? So, how do you see Austin's ecosystem really evolving, and the role that local VC is kind of playing into that growth?
Yeah, hell of a question, and I think I also have a more, it's my personal opinion and my sort of view over the last couple of years here in town. So number one, I think Austin is amazing. We have an amazing community. We have what I've been calling all the puzzle pieces, not just in Austin, but in Texas as a whole, right? Because I mean, Texas is massive. I think we are now the eighth largest economy in the world. And I don't think Austin operates in a silo. Like I think we're very unique in who we are and how we are here in Austin, but um, I can't ignore or discredit some of the value that we get as being, part of the greater sort of Texas ecosystem. Um, Luckily, like I said at the beginning of the call, I've been here for over a decade now, and even just thinking back, I've seen different sort of trends in verticals that we might be attracted to. We've definitely had, I think, a massive growth in venture capital and firms, and money, here in town. So from a capital standpoint, I think we continue to evolve and grow every single day. Now, where I think what I've essentially now devoted my life to, is focusing on the earliest of stages, right? So the really first check type, first check part of the equation here in town. Um, and the reason for that, like the reason why I'm making this sort of my life goal now is, like I mentioned earlier, I think we have a lot of great VCs. Naturally, a lot of those have been around for a while. They manage a ton of money. They are amazing people. I know most of them on a personal level, and I love them dearly. But they usually come in a bit later, right? They're a seed plus, Series A. They have, a lot to sort of accomplish, and they lead a lot of rounds. And I feel like we lack in the earliest of stages. I think we have a great angel network that isn't fully connected, right? And what I really mean by that in a more sort of tangible way is that I think we have the money, I think we have the capital, to fund and start more amazing companies in Austin. But to me, it feels a little bit disconnected and not sort of all working in the same direction. So that's my focus, is how do we improve that, right? Like how do we make Austin a stronger pre-seed ecosystem, so that we identify, so that we attract, and so that we fund great early stage founders like you, Gabe, to have the opportunity to create amazing new companies here in town. Then I think that'll be a flywheel effect, right? If we do more and better in our pre-seed rounds, a lot of my peers in the VC space, in the seed and pre and Series A and beyond and growth, will have more of a pipeline, which hopefully leads to better, bigger companies, which means more exits. Which historically we know that if we have bigger exits in town, more of that money pumps back into the ecosystem at the earliest stages, through angels or more early stage venture. And that just becomes, I think, a stronger and stronger flywheel effect. So I feel like now I'm rambling, but it's to me is we have all the pieces. Austin is freaking amazing. Texas is a great state to be a part of. We have all the puzzle pieces. Now it's all about making pre-seed stronger so that it feeds into the rest of the ecosystem.
100%. I think that's honestly one of the biggest areas right now where Austin is lacking is some of the early stage deal flow. And I don't mean early stage as in seed and Series A, definitely within the pre-seed mark. I feel like there's a gap that's been created where not only in Austin, but in general, we're kind of looking for a lot more seed stage what previously were defined as seed stage metrics at pre-seed, especially because of the rapid developments with AI. But also there is a massive amount of angels, limited partners, just everything that is in Austin, especially because a lot more people are moving from, your Californias and your New Yorks and everything else to Texas, mainly because of a lot of the taxes and stuff like that. But like we have a wealth of individuals, I think, that are starting to invest more in the Austin ecosystem, but they're not doing it as quickly as I think we really should be expecting in some of those regards. But there also is a lot of great opportunity coming from like the new Texas Stock Exchange, right? Like, we're starting to see a lot more investment movement. And so I'm really excited for what that could play into, not just for Austin, but just for Texas as a whole. As we continue to progress with, kind of evaluating a lot more opportunities that are coming into the ecosystem. And speaking of that specifically, I mean, the new opportunity that you're kind of working on, I don't know if you're able to share a little bit more details and some of the ways that, you're looking to work more within the Austin ecosystem, but also just in general with the work that you're doing and some of the verticals you're looking at.
Yeah, I'll never miss an opportunity for a good plug. So happy to share. I've mentioned a lot of pre-seed investing and helping founders. And over the last, call it, 3 to 6 months, that's really taken shape to become what will be hopefully announcing the launch day for spring, a founder residency here in Austin. So it'll be a physical space where my portfolio plus other companies will come in and build day in and day out. There's a lot of moving pieces and probably a lot more to share in the future. But the idea is that it's not just capital, right? But it is some of the strategic partnerships that I'm enabling as part of this so that we can help our founders have more resources, whether that's through data, for pilot customers, influence, whatever the case might be. It's sort of very generic, right, to say strategic partners, but that's by design. I think you actually said something earlier today that every company is different. And I like truly believe that. So it's not meant to be an accelerator with programming that is week 1 through 12, and we covered this, and that. It's very specific. Honestly, it's designed to be fluid and meet founders where they are with capital, with connections, with moral support, right? If you're in a room building with 10 other companies day in and day out, there's a lot to gain from just working with one another, learning from one another, supporting one another. So there's definitely going to be a culture component to this. But the idea is that we create the physical space, try to remove as many barriers as humanly possible to make our company stronger, better, faster, more valuable, and essentially de-risk the earliest of stages, the most challenging of stages, um, through this physical space, money, connections, and everything else that I just mentioned. So if you want to learn more, if you're listening now, or if you're watching now or in the future, just go to ap1.vc.com, or sorry, ap1.vc. That's it right there, ap1.vc. Launching in the spring. We want to hear from as many startups as humanly possible. My goal is to see at least 10,000 companies this year going through this application process. And where I can, I will give feedback to anybody, even if we get involved or not. We're also opening it up to investors, to partners, strategic, corporate, government. It's going to take all of us coming in together to really drive this pre-seed environment forward. I'm just here to be the megaphone and hopefully give us a platform to make that a little bit quicker, a little bit faster.
No, 100%. And I mean, I've been following this process that you've been on for pretty much, I think, since the beginning. For starting, this new residency program, looking to fund a lot more of these companies. I know you've also been, putting a lot more effort into some of your angel investments as well, and trying to find the right opportunities there. And I've even sent you a couple of companies that I thought would be really good for what you were doing. And so. I know that not only does Austin need what you're doing, but just in general, the tech ecosystem, I think period. There's a lot of movement and also not really any movement at all in a lot of areas. And being able to really establish those residency aspects, bring in new talent, but also supporting the current talent, corporations, establishing a lot of those partnerships for some of these, companies and products that are really crucial to even some of their day-to-day operations, I think is absolutely amazing. And of course, doing everything that I can to help you make this a reality. And I'm really excited for what's next for everything as well. I really wish it was also, if you want to describe some more of the verticals that you guys are looking at for it too, because I know for sure we do not fit into that category, and so I want to make sure other people know what you guys are looking for as well.
Yeah, for sure. So as it stands today, I'm looking for things in health tech. Nothing FDA, nothing clinical or like medical drugs development, but more on the software workflow management of healthcare as a whole. It's a massive, massive industry that is severely outdated, very inefficient, and I think we can do a lot better with technology to make healthcare more accessible and just smarter for the world. I like supply chain and logistics. I kind of had an example on one of those earlier today. So really think about anything that moves the world, right? So whether that's moving things from place to place, warehouse, manufacturing, anything in that space on how we move things across the entire world. And then lastly, is prop tech. It hasn't been quite a sought. Gabe, you gave me a great company that I've chatted with in the past in the prop tech space. But I do also fundamentally believe that we can do more in how we build things, right? So the technology on how we, find things, build things in the physical world. And why those three, four verticals is because that's what I've built in. That's what I know. That's what I've been successful in. So for the time being, that's where the money goes. I invest in what I know. Though that might change in the future, given some of the strategic partners that I have alluded to coming online in the coming months. But for now, that'll be the focus, and hopefully we can open that up and just again allow more amazing startups across different verticals to join us here in Austin.
No, that's amazing. And there's actually two other companies that I want to introduce you to. And there's also a couple of folks on the strategic partnership side that I think we can jam about as well. So you already know I've got your number, so I'm going to hit you up about some of that stuff. But
Absolutely.
no, it's really it's extremely inspiring how much work and effort you've put into really changing yourself, not just as a founder, but also how you've changed the landscape just for your own personal setup with this as an investor as well, right? Because we've talked about all the different possibilities for where you wanted to take this because of the passion that you have specifically for those three main verticals and your experience within those areas, and really trying to make sure that at the end of the day you don't want to write blank checks, right? You want to be able to provide the real world tangible support, which I mean, I've talked to a lot of investors. Everybody doesn't have that thought process. I think a lot more people should, and so that's why I'll always make sure I can do what I can. And hilariously, I have way more connections in those sectors than I probably should. So, also happy to help out any founders or investors that you guys have coming through as well for this upcoming program that you're doing. But
For sure.
wanted to bring up the magical. Sorry, I got to switch the tab to move that QR code because we're approaching the end of the podcast. Want to set up our lightning round really quick. So, for all of you guys that might be new to the Tales from the Pantheon podcast, we do a lightning round with 5 rapid fire questions. And essentially, these are to get some quick, tangible insight for, book recommendations, myths, all the fun things, right? So, you ready, Arturo?
Let's get out. I'll do my best.
All right. Also, I'm going to turn my video off specifically for this one, so because my video keeps lagging, so that we can have all eyes on you for this one. So let's pop this in. All right, bet. So, first question: what's one fundraising myth you wish would die?
Man, myth. I would say, it's I don't know if it's a myth or if it might be the opposite of a myth, but well, here's one that I actually kind of like, especially in today's market and for the earliest stages. Um, you don't necessarily need a lead, especially early on. Personally, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, I feel like that's an excuse that a lot of other investors might use if they don't have the conviction or the confidence that this is worth their investment. But on the same line, if I'm just sitting here waiting for somebody else to lead, and that's the only way that I'll get involved, I feel like I just don't have a good thesis, or sort of like I'm not doing my job as an investor, right? Which is like doing what I need to know to write a check and feel confident. If I'm just waiting to follow somebody else's lead, then that defeats the purpose. So maybe the myth there is that you need it. Um, and then maybe just like an additional color to that is, if those are the only investors that are on your cap table, especially earlier on, I wouldn't expect them as a founder to be a lot of help for me outside of money. Money's great. We all need money. Don't take that in the wrong way. But if you value getting more than just the check, if somebody's just waiting for somebody else to lead so they can follow their example, I just have a feeling that they're going to be a low value add outside of the money, which is great. But if you need more, uh, reset your expectations.
Honestly, not the first time that I've heard that in the last literally 30 days. You're probably about the fifth person that has specified that actually really invests in pre-seed and means it. So take that advice, guys. Next question: what's one book or resource you would recommend to founders, and also one for investors as well?
Nice. And you gave me like right before the call that a quick warm up that would be one of the questions. And full transparency, I'm not the most avid reader. I feel like I feel dumb admitting that. So I'm gonna go with like what's out there and what's almost in real time. Especially right now, I've seen so many good Twitter articles that are the new long form.
Yep.
Um, and there's some people out here that are brilliant, and they're just giving out what I would pay for, right, as part of like free information. So for me, it's honestly just staying close to that, like everything around me, from an investment standpoint, from a vertical standpoint. So it's less so on like the books, which might be, one, two, three, you kind of take that and you learn and you execute on it. But just staying like intimately close to the world around you. Things are changing so fast that I feel like if I find some of the books here in my closet, they're 10 plus years old. So they're probably some fundamentals on, product building and company building, and being sticky and whatnot. I can think of some good books that I've read in the past, but I just feel like the world is changing so freaking fast that by the time I'm done with that book, I need like the V2 of it. You know what I mean? So,
Right on.
anyways, yeah, like I'm obsessed with Twitter. I probably get too much screen time on Twitter or X. Um, but I feel like that makes me, a stronger investor. I see what's happening. I see what's not happening. I see what people are saying, and I take that to kind of make my own, my own assumptions and my own thoughts related to it.
No, I mean that fits into the resource bucket for sure. And also, I do plus one that. I think a lot of people don't realize how many investors are on Twitter and how active they are. It's actually, I know a large amount, like literally over like 30% of founders that I know that have gotten one of their checks from talking to somebody on Twitter, actually, for even some first check in, honestly. So amazing resource to provide to everybody, for both founders and for investors on both ends of that. And so what's the best piece of business advice you have ever received?
Um, I mean, for me, again, as a founder turned investor, I like to stay close to my numbers and like just understanding sort of the financial and like the just my business inside out. And I talked to a lot of my founders about this too, right? Which is um, number one, like what are the metrics that actually drive your business forward? I think in tech, especially, we can fantasize, or I don't know what the right word would be, but there's a lot of vanity metrics that look great on paper. And this can be as simple as, just a massive ARR, which can help at the right point in time to get to the next stage. But if the health of that annual recurring revenue is not good, then you're going to struggle as a business long term, right? So I think the best advice I can give is just know your numbers intimately, keep an eye on things, understand what it will take to make a viable business. And what I mean by that is how can you turn a profit, right? Like, how do you get to your next milestone? What is the health of your revenue? What is your churn? What is your acquisition cost? Like, all the little details from getting customers to pay you and keeping customers, because those are problems that if you're not close to early on, I think will compound and become more difficult over time. Especially in today's market where, we're seeing companies blow up overnight, get massive success on paper. Um, but underneath the hood, maybe things aren't so healthy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with Cluely, but like that one comes to mind. Like they blew up, right? Cluely was everywhere. They had an amazing sort of marketing edgy campaign. They blew up. Like they were on paper the fastest growing company ever, and then they just kind of disappeared. That tells me that
Yeah.
there was probably some sort of issue underneath the hood, right? That was ignored for too long, and now I would imagine is you have to pay the price after that.
Yeah, no, I mean, rapid growth doesn't mean anything if you can't sustain it for sure. Um,
Mhm.
and so, next question: what's something that a lot of people misunderstand about you?
Oh man, I didn't know that one was coming, and I'm not prepared for it. I mean, I guess if you don't know me, like Gabe, you and I have been friends for a while, so I
Yeah,
think you know me pretty well. But I feel like if you're new to meeting me, and depending on where you have met me, um, I feel like a lot of times people kind of come to the table thinking it's going to be like a traditional venture conversation. But in reality, it's I'm still a founder first. I'm still an entrepreneur first, and investor second. So
yeah,
I try to really go in with that mentality. And number one, being helpful from day one. If I don't see it, I tell you straight up. I tell you why I don't see it. Um, so it might be that I'm just another VC in town and in a more traditional way, or just some random rich guy. But at the end of the day, number one, I'm not that rich, so don't get that get that straight. And then number two is like, look, I'm here to tell you straight. I'm here to help you, whether we invest, whether we work together. And I think that's what I'm here to do, right? I'm here to help founders create awesome things. So um, hopefully that maybe brings in some new folks to reach out and chat with me.
no, that's amazing. And last question on this lightning round: what's a small daily habit that's made a huge difference for you?
Yeah, so I do have the luxury of having an amazing uh, executive assistant. I call her like my life chief of staff, but
Mm,
she has enabled me and taught me the importance of sort of my daily planning. So like how I start my day and setting my intentions, my actions, what's going to have the biggest impact, and sticking to that. So it's not meant to be a massive drain on planning and everything, but just knowing what's ahead of me immediately, especially as a founder, and I have a couple different ventures even to this day, just keeps me, as I mentioned earlier, super focused, narrow focused, what's going to have the biggest impact in my life and my day, and move things forward. So daily habit is it's maybe if you're in product or tech, it's like my daily stand up for myself. What am I going to do today? Why am I going to do it? What is the sort of impact that's going to have, and then just going and executing that. So like literally it's a checklist that I go through every single day.
that's fantastic. And I am going to pop back in here. We'll see if my video still hates me in the world. But no, I really appreciate you for jumping on today and being able to, share a lot of the knowledge and experiences that you've really had to hopefully help out a lot more founders and investors, or even just enthusiasts or industry experts, whatever it is, because our audience is very broad for everybody that watches this. Just being able to bring your perspectives to the table so that people can have a little bit more insight into some of these processes. So yeah, definitely thank you so much for jumping on, man. And I'm gonna go ahead and share some more info for Titan AI super fast. So, if you are not following us or watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and follow us and watch us and all the fun things. All of our podcast episodes are there, as well as some of the recordings on LinkedIn and Spotify as well. So literally up to 24 hours after this episode airs, we will put it on Spotify. And the other thing, we're also on all the fun things like TikTok. So follow us on there. We're going to start posting more throughout the rest of this year on TikTok, as well as the fun and famous Instagram. And finally, sign up for Tidy AI. I can see when you do and don't sign up. So there are over 5 to 10,000 people that watch these episodes each week, and so I want to make sure that all of you guys are jumping onto the platform. If you have literally any issues with signing up or any of that stuff or any bugs, please let me know. But we would love to have you all on. The platform is really taking off. We're really excited for what's coming next. And yeah, no, thank you, Arturo, for coming on once again. And thank you all for watching. And we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, Gabe. And thanks